Okay. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, this is not going to be a monologue. It's going to be a discussion with a lovely, like-minded woman who has been on the podcast before, and I will add that episode to the show notes. Today, I am with Magda Zenon.
Hello, Eleni.
Hello, welcome to my new studio. Last time we did it, we were at the...
This is lovely. I love your new studio.
Thank
and
you.
I actually invited myself.
I know you did. I know you did. Because you were so sure that I was not going to say no. There was no way. And actually, I find that you've come at the perfect time because apart from the one topic that we're going to discuss, which is very close to your heart now, we're going to discuss another one, which...
It's close to both our hearts.
It's close to both our hearts. And also because I find myself very confused and I see within our societies and within our communities some struggle in either understanding or expressing feelings. So the two topics that we're going to discuss today...
I also think they have a problem navigating what they read online.
True. And we're going to get into that. Very, very, very true. So, two topics. One is retirement. That's a topic that I've never discussed on the podcast before. So I'm very, very excited to hear what you've got to say about that. And the second topic, which we were just talking about, is the Israel-Palestine conflict, war, situation. You get it. So let's get into it. Right, retirement. The only information I have regarding retirement and, well, getting old, is that our society and our governments and our services and our institutions are not ready for it. Is that a true statement?
Yes, it is, because when you come into retirement, no one helps you navigate it. Okay. Firstly, you do have the luxury.
By the way, is it from one day to the next? Is it like one Friday you just knock off work and like you never go back? My God.
I just didn't go back to work on
my God.
1st of February.
Talk about a shock.
And even though you are prepared because you have had to submit your documents for your pension, nothing really prepares you for the day after.
Yeah, mentally.
And mentally, the day after is cool because you actually wake up and you don't have to wake up at 7:32. But no one prepares you for the follow-up, for what you actually do. Because I had a meeting with one of the ambassadors who's actually my age, and we were discussing this thing that at our age, and I'm 66, we are actually almost at our most productive because you've navigated this whole thing. You've gained a lot of information. You've sifted through what's important, what's not important, what you can do and what you can't do.
You've got the experience.
So you've got the experience and you know what you know and you don't know. So at this age, you're actually probably at your most productive. And suddenly the system says to you, no, bye.
Yeah, go away. Go away. We don't want you anymore.
You're not useful anymore.
You're not useful anymore. I was at a menopause event over the weekend, which was organised by some really lovely friends of mine, women who are doing so much work in this area that is so needed. And they were talking about the fact that in our 50s, in our 40s, 50s, even in our 60s, women are at their most productive phase, their most productive stage.
Well, I'm looking at myself now, and I think now I'm a lot more clear. Okay, when I was young, I was doing a lot more things, and things were overlapping, and I was doing very little self-care. Now I'm a lot more aware of what's important. Okay,
that is so true.
So I know that when I contribute, I'm contributing substantially. I'm not just throwing in words to say.
Yeah, you're not wasting energy on things that don't matter.
Yes.
Yeah. So talk to me about what happens to a person who retires in Cyprus.
Well, you're supposed to retire at 65, okay?
Okay.
So you submit your documents and then you get your pension 2 or 3 months after your 65th birthday. Some companies, you're allowed to work till 67 if the company allows you.
Okay.
In my case, I was allowed to work till 66, but then the company downsized.
And you were the first to go.
And I was the first to go because my department was quite they don't actually know the value of what I was doing, but that's irrelevant. They can deal with it. It's not my problem. And then suddenly, it's like you're a ship in the harbor. Suddenly, the anchor is pulled up and you let loose. And the navigation, and I always say this, I'm confident, I'm educated, I'm healthy, I'm connected, I live in Nicosia. And navigating that space where, firstly, I need the money because I came out on a really low pension because I've only worked here 22 years. I'm a single parent, which means I had to work part-time, which means my contribution to social insurance was lower. So I came out on a very low pension that I am not allowed to apply for the subsidy to meet the lower income level because I have a certain amount of money in the bank. I find the way they judge this quite random because I'm 66. Inshallah, I live at least 20 more years. The money I've got is not going to last me 20 more years.
No.
And the money I get covers utilities.
Yeah. I'm going to...
And I will add to that, and I will add to that we're also living in a period when the youth is battling with employment.
Oh, God.
So my son is still living at home. He does have a fairly good job, but they're employing them on contract now. So he has a job until the end of the year. They might not re-employ him, which means I'm covering his costs as well.
Yeah.
So they've actually doubly screwed me, and I'm using in the general way.
Yeah.
So we are called upon to be okay with the pension we are getting and not applying for the subsidy because I've got a certain amount of money that I inherited, and also supporting my son. It's a nightmare.
I want to stick to the part where you said that you're on a low pension because you're a single mom and because you always had to work part-time. And this is something that as women, we talk about all the time. And I'm going to go a step further and use the stay-at-home moms as an example as well, who are literally out of the workforce for probably like 2 decades. I mean, I was out for a whole decade when I decided to stay home. Didn't even occur to me that, I won't have a decent pension. And what will I do when I reach that age? So talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, I think people underestimate it. They underestimate the fact that as a single parent, whenever I was offered a job, I had to factor in the fact that I had a young child, okay? Which means that I had to consider where he would go to after school, which in the public schools, it's until 3:30, okay?
Yeah.
I had to factor in if he needed extra lessons, how would he get there? We live in a country that has really crap public transport. So this means there's the assumption that there's a yaya somewhere that can help you. I was blessed to have the sister of my father, who was like a grandmother to my son, but she didn't drive. She lived next to the school, which meant my son could go there, but she couldn't schlep him around, and nor was it her responsibility.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. It was not her responsibility.
It wasn't her responsibility. I had this was a blessing to me. But this is not the responsibility should not be thrown back to the family or the person to actually find a solution. So I was obliged, when I was offered the job that I was offered, that I was working for the last 15 years. Initially it was 8 to 1:30 and 2:30, 8 to 1 and 2:30 to 5:30. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. But if you can offer me 8 to 2:30,
I could make that work.
I could make that work. The initial reaction was no. But then they came back within 24 hours. They said, you know what? You don't deal with clients, so let's go for it. Okay, which is really, I was blessed. Because the company I worked for was actually one of the biggest law firms. So the job was stable. I got paid every month. In times of difficulty, I had brain surgery, which meant I was off work for 2 months. So it was a really humane company. It was a blessing. But it also meant that I was working 6.5 hours a day. It meant I was contributing for 6.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Which means my contributions for 50 years were lower.
Yeah.
But it also meant that when the opportunity came up, when my son grew older, I wasn't really considered for increasing my hours.
Why?
Because I was getting older because the mindset was not there, because they thought the job was not important. Because my specific job within this company was a job that most companies don't realize the importance of it was. It had to do with money and money laundering, which I don't know why they didn't consider it important, but that's irrelevant. But the fact that I, for the last 15 years, only contributed for 6.5 hours labor a day meant my contribution to social insurance was lower.
Yeah.
And in the previous years, I was doing jobs that fitted in with the schedule of having a young child.
Yeah.
And in fact, I had a really great job, but it was at a really intense company that had to do with migrants and their problems. And my son asked me to resign because he said to me, "Mom, you're bringing your problems home and I don't like it."
Oh, God.
No, and he was right. He was right.
You know, when these kids come at you with these grand statements that are so right and so true, it can knock you out.
Totally.
Yeah.
He says to me, when you come back from this job, you're ugly.
Yeah.
Please, you need to leave this job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Let's take it another step further.
So let me
go.
So if you put into this...
the women, sorry.
As a single parent, you make decisions based on the fact that the state does not support you. There's no structures to support you. Public transport, inexpensive childcare, the basics.
Let's leave public transport, even though it's a massive issue. The fact that our kids cannot get from A to B safely by themselves within such a small area. But I was going to ask you about schools. When we talk about the schedule changing, what do you think? Later starting hours, later finishing hours, kind of like it is in the rest of Europe.
Later finishing hours. I don't mind the starting in the morning doesn't bother me because I know it needs to fit into the schedule of the civil servants as well.
Okay.
But it needs to finish later. They need to make a plan for all their schools because I cannot every time when I talk about me as a single parent or any parent, I cannot fit into the schedule of the school. Because we are not all civil servants.
Well, ask me. Whatever's going on, come rain or shine, I have to pack up everything at 1:30 to go and get the kids. And then I've got them for the rest of the day, which means that I cannot work for the rest of the day, which means that within my field of podcasting in Cyprus, my obstacles are nothing. I mean, what other male podcasters have to deal with is nothing in comparison to what I have to do.
Now, I think
and that's the same for so many other fields of work.
Absolutely. The fact that, and some friend of mine that I considered woke, said to me, "But do you actually think that for the job you do, a man would be paid more?" I said, "For the job I do, a man wouldn't have had to make the decision of going part-time. It's as simple as that because in 9.5 times out of 10, the mother has the custody.
Yeah.
And in single parenting, you do have men that are the single parent, but it's only women.
But, we don't, the terminology working dad does not exist. Working mum does.
Exactly.
There you go. And the fact that you come to the realization as a woman that, by doing this part-time work and by doing the second shift, which is what we say mums when we go home, and even with my neighbors here in the neighborhood, they always joke with me. They're going, "Oh, you're going off to start your second shift." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Very few fathers have to do that. Very few. There are, but the majority of the people who have to knock off one a job and start the other, which, by the way, is unpaid.
Exactly.
Are women.
That's tragic. It's tragic. And this is what a lot of groups are starting, and like the European Women's Lobby have got a very big project about the care economy. Because this issue of, and we all noticed during COVID.
Yes.
In COVID, how many extra jobs, if women weren't there to teach their kids at home, or to look after their family when they were sick, or their parents that were at home alone, that were aging, what would have happened? Women were the front line at the hospitals, at the food, that's the front line of the care industry.
Yeah.
And the care industry is the lowest paid generally, because an economy always factors in that it's men, middle-aged, educated, healthy, Caucasian.
Yeah.
It doesn't factor in the care industry, and without the care industry, and I'm saying it an industry which includes parenting, okay, society falls apart.
Yeah.
So we really need to upgrade, and there's a young, awesome Mary Beer who's pushing the gender budgeting.
We love Mary Beer.
This is what it is. You've got to factor in all the jobs, because especially the care industry, which is not taken into account in a budget.
Yep.
It's without the care industry, we will fall apart. And
Yep.
we assume that women are going to do it for free or for a low salary.
So true. I could get so depressed right now, but I'm not going to.
No, we don't get depressed. We deal with it.
No, this is what gives us the motivation to do what we do, and you've been doing it for so many years now. So within the retirement field that we're talking about right now, I also want to go into, you just mentioned care, let's go into care homes. Mm-hmm. Non-existent?
Yes.
Yes, basically, yes.
They're non-existent. There are some, but the ones that are good are very expensive.
Yeah.
The ones that are affordable, you actually need someone to check in on you regularly. So no. And I remember just before they built Hagia Sophia in Strovolos, they were talking about this big project of a few million.
Yeah.
They closed down half the old age homes. And most people were saying, why do we need a new church, and why aren't they using this money to put into care homes for elderly people?
Don't get me bloody started with the church, Magda. You know me. It's like throwing oil at a fire. Please tell me, what are you, me, in 20 years supposed to do?
And why is there the assumption that my son's going to look after me? That's not what I want for my son.
I don't want it for my kids either.
It shouldn't be his responsibility. He should love me and be around, or love me and care in the sense of care, but not look after my daily needs.
Yeah. Not be a nurse.
Yes.
To you.
Or my carer. He shouldn't have to be my carer.
Yeah. So have you been communicating with retired folks and people on the island? What do they do apart from drink coffee at the coffee shop here?
Well, I retired 1st of February. So I'm quite new. I'm a newbie on the block.
You're a newbie.
So at this stage, what I'm trying to do, because firstly, I need a job because I need to supplement my income. And secondly, I'm really still very active, and there are a lot of things I carry on doing. So I need to carry on doing them, but I need to be more selective. I mustn't do everything. I must go where I'm wanted and where I'm effective. Where I'm not wanted or not effective, I must learn to say no. So I've been navigating, Magda, in retirement. I've been trying to do self-care. I think the biggest challenge, and I'm sure most people that retire, the biggest challenge is of finding a new routine.
Okay.
Because I'm really a disorganized person naturally, so my job gave me a routine.
Yeah.
And now I'm all over the place.
What does self-care look like to you?
Well, self-care looks like breathing. I mean, I think that's the best part of self-care.
My God, people, remember to breathe.
Because I'm a panicker. I had a really bad panic attack the other day.
Oh, God.
And I had to go and apologize to everyone after it. But fortunately...
I hate when you have to do that.
No, fortunately, they're my friends and they love me and they said, okay, but I really... When I look at what happened, I think that wasn't me.
Yeah.
It's learning to breathe. It's learning to eat better. Exercise, I think with my age, exercise is more imperative, and I'm really bad at that. I think that's what self-care looks like. And self-care also looks at only focusing on the good fights and stepping away from toxic environments and toxic people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really need to get into exercise because I'm really not good at it.
Well, I mean, as a person who goes to Pilates 3 times a week at 8 in the morning, I literally drop the kids off and I go straight to class. No coffee, no smoothie, nothing. If I don't do that, then there's absolutely no way I'm going to move my body after that. And I don't enjoy it. I'm going to be honest, I don't enjoy it. I'm one of those people who's constantly looking at the clock, wondering when the time's going to be.
Is it over yet?
Is it done yet? Or, when I go on my walks, people who follow me on Instagram know that I post my walks because I post a lot of music as well. I'm a huge music fan. I don't always want to do it, but I'm at the point in my life where I understand the necessity of it. And you know what I always say? I go for a walk or I exercise for my mind, for my mental health, and my ass and my stomach and my thighs just come along for the ride. That's not why I do it. I don't do it because I'm under the illusion that I'm going to have this beautiful fit body. I do it because it's actually a release for me mentally.
Well, I need to do it, Eleni. I last year had a minor heart attack.
Yeah, I know.
And the doctor said to me, it's good news because there was no damage to the heart. There was no blockage. We don't need to fix anything, but you need to exercise.
Yeah.
So I've had the warning signs.
Yeah.
A panic attack is also a reason I need to exercise because, as you said, it frees your mind.
Yeah.
It relaxes your mind.
Yeah, it does. It really
So
genuinely does.
Maybe I'm making excuses. I don't find walking alone easy because
Oh, really? I love it.
No, because I need someone to say, Magda, let's go walking. I'm not going to get up on my own and walk. You've got kids, okay? And kids give you a routine.
Yeah.
You said you drop your kids off at school and you go to
Yeah,
Pilates.
yeah.
I can wake up whatever time I want.
I know.
I make sure I have meetings in the morning to ensure that I'm actually up at the latest at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah, because
And ready to go out.
when they break off, whether it's Easter holidays or Christmas or summer, my routine just goes out the window. It's going to bed at midnight and waking up at 9, and then you're like, feeling all groggy. So a routine and a schedule actually is a brilliant idea. And, you should have kids because of that. That's the only reason.
I'm not going to have kids again. Okay?
Don't go there, Magda. Don't go there. I wanted to go back to what you said, that you need to find a job now and you need to be selective about that. And I wanted to ask you, as a person who freelances as well, I've got the podcast, but I also do various other projects. Do you find that we tend to be doing a lot of free work?
Oh, absolutely. Far too much. And I think a lot of free comes firstly from the fact that you actually want to do it. Okay, so if you want to do it, you tend to do it free.
Are the people who are asking us to do certain jobs, do they know that? And that's why they dare to ask without offering
I think it used to be like that. But
payment?
It used to be like that. You and I have both been in positions now that even the people that have asked us to do jobs acknowledge the fact that we need to be paid for it.
Yeah.
So they'll say to you, this is the job we have for you. What do you want?
Yeah.
So it's the mentality.
And it's such a relief.
The mentality has changed. But I told you, and I'm not shy to say it, the state offered me a position in one of their projects and assumed that it was for free. And I said to him, dude, you didn't pick me up off the street. You picked me up because I have this specific expertise. Yeah. Acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking for millions, though millions would be nice, but acknowledge it even with giving me 100 euros per meeting.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the fact that I spent a shitload of money,
Yeah.
if I may, on the education I got, on the time I spent investigating, talking about this.
Thank you. That is what I always say. So people are like, I'd like to invite you to this event. If you'd like to do a little speech for like 10, 15 minutes. They think it just stops there. It doesn't. The research that has to go into a certain topic. Every single podcast, I mean, you were doing it way before I was doing it, interviewing women. And I'd like to get into that as well. But the amount of research that you have to do before you sit down with the guest or go and talk at an event. Your the time and energy that you will spend going from your house to that place. The kids.
Yes.
Kids. The fact that I have to make a whole plan that involves multiple people on multiple levels taking care of my kids while I'm doing this job for you. And they'll turn around and say, well, it's networking and exposure. And you're like, well, that won't fucking pay the bills.
Exactly.
Will it? Or value my time.
Or value me.
Yeah. I find that we... in this area of women and feminists, we do a lot of free work, and it's a shame.
It's far too much. And I think the blame is on the culture, but I think we also need to change. We also need to say, when someone comes and says to us, can you do that? The first question needs to be, how much does it pay?
Yeah. And be willing, which is what I've understood, to lose a job or a position or something because you've said no.
Or I have the luxury of being able to do that because I don't need the exposure.
But
no, you know what I'm saying? Some people,
I know what you're saying.
I'm older.
I know what
donkeys
you're
here.
saying, yeah.
When you're young and you're trying to get recognition within the community, you're a lot more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I'll say, you know what, dude, no, go somewhere else.
Yeah, you're right, actually, because when I first started this podcast in 2019, it was just, exposure and networking. Oh, yeah, actually, that's really good because I can, more people will know about the podcast and what I do. But I feel that 4 years later, and getting to the point where people are actually calling me to come on my podcast means that actually the networking exposure that you're offering me
is worthless. No, I don't have it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't need to come to your event.
I don't need to do that
and
anyway.
I actually can come to your event and not speak. Okay, which means I can come and I can see the people, but I don't need to be on the panel.
That's so true. That is so true. So yeah, going back to the interviewing women, I did want to say, and I wanted to say this at the beginning, and I didn't, that before Mamamoo, the podcast, the first podcast for women and mothers in Cyprus, you were the OG. You were the original gangster.
Yes, I was.
You were already interviewing women on your KaleidHERscope.
Oh, I actually, if I think of one or two events that changed my life, that is the one event that changed my life because it fell into my lap randomly from the Cyprus Community Media Center that was in the buffer zone. They said, we're having a community radio station.
When was this?
2013.
2013, okay.
They said I was on the board. They said you could do women's issues, so do a program. I thought, you know what, like to try. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. I was concerned about, firstly, finding people and who would speak to me because who was I, and I'm not underselling myself. And secondly, if I could talk about it, and it's not about talking enough because you and I can chat for years, but about streamlining the conversation.
Yes.
And it turned out that I loved it. I started off with Fatima Mishimu, but it worked out that we didn't work as a team, but we're great as friends. And it turned out that, firstly, no one said no. Okay. It also turned out that because we're a small community, I realized I had to go beyond our borders. It also turned out, because it's what you spoke about earlier, when you're a podcaster, there's a lot of research involved. So I decided, you know what, there's certain women's issues I'm really not interested in, and I'm not interested in. They don't drive me or they don't catch my attention. So that's why I decided to focus on peace builders in all the dimensions of peace building, because at least I had a starting point.
Yeah.
I had 4 or 5 facts I knew and enough curiosity to ask questions.
Yeah, and it was something that was so needed as well, and is still needed.
And I mean, I stepped out of Cyprus, and so now I've had a Nobel Peace Prize laureate on my show. I've had Eve Ensler from the Vagina Monologue. So it's turned out that I've spoken to so many wonderful women. I've learned every show, and you know this as well. Every show you learn at least one thing.
Yep.
At least one thing. And now I've got my KaleidHERscope network. You make your friends, and I've also got, even though I've done a lot of other things, KaleidHERscope is very much one of my strong identities.
Yeah.
And now, and it's something we're going to talk about later, I'm speaking to a lot of Palestinian and Israeli women.
Yes.
And I'm making sure, because when Hands Across the Divide was established, which is one of the groups I was the founder of, I'm still a member of, in 2002, one of our first actions as a group was to send a letter of solidarity to Bat Shalom, which was then the group that brought Palestinian and Israeli women together. So it's, this issue is an issue that's been part of my life since I can remember. I even did my postgraduate dissertation on the Palestinians. Yeah. So I'm making sure to bring women from Women Wage Peace. That's a woman that worked with Palestinian women. the the progressives, Woman of the Sun. I'm going to interview the woman that was at the FemFest.
You got her first.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll let you have her, but then you give her to me.
Absolutely.
Let's not mention her name now.
Yes.
But yeah.
But I've spread the word out that I've spoken to a lot of women in the area, because one of the biggest victims beyond the people of the Palestinian-Israeli clash now is the middle of the road, the left wing. Because people have suddenly taken extreme sides. We need to. I'm speaking to them because they are feeling marginalized. They feel under threat, but not enough under threat to stop doing what they're doing. But we need to
Establish.
Say their voices. We need to give a voice, a platform to their voices, because they need to be heard. This madness in the Middle East cannot carry on. Okay.
It cannot. And we're going to get into that. But before we go to that...
Stay tuned, because I've got 3 or 4 awesome women from the Middle East.
Stay tuned for Magda. And then, as always, I'll just follow behind her.
No. You're doing other things.
So. Get whatever I can. But I wanted to say that, going back to what you said about when you first got the idea of KaleidHERscope and you were wondering... Who could I talk to? That was my original thought. This is such a small island. Like, am I even going to be able to fill like gaps every week with people? And I was literally gobsmacked at 4 years later, at the amount of people that we have on this little piddly island that are truly game changers, and they don't have the recognition that they should get. And that's what I'm hoping that me and you and other... the little people are trying to do, bring these voices forward and make people realize that there are.
And you also bring up a lot of subjects that have been considered anathema. I mean, the LGBT community, menopause, or bullying, which is not spoken about on mainstream media.
Oh, fuck me, Magda. Seriously?
And it's also the people that are involved or victims are often not given a forum in the mainstream media. So it's a very important
it's like there is
vacuum that you're filling.
So many hidden topics, so many topics that are supposed to be taboo that people just don't want to go anywhere near. And I've said it before on my social media, and I'll say it again. This is also the reason, Magda, why I have had difficulties finding sponsors. They do not like the fact that I'm so vocal on these topics. Abortion, LGBTQ, violence against women. And, I'm constantly shocked at their reaction and the fact that they have the audacity to tell me to tone it down a little bit.
No, but I agree with you. That's, if you want to have a podcast that's effective, you've got to be more mainstream. It doesn't mean you need to be bad.
No.
But like Mr. Legal Matters, he's doing really well.
Yeah.
But he's quite specific, as I said, exceptionally well, and he's got a lot of listeners.
Yeah.
But it's
knowledge.
And the knowledge, but he's a lot more mainstream.
Yes.
But when you hit the subjects that you're talking to...
He's digestible.
Yes.
You and me, we aren't.
No.
But people have difficulties.
I like to think of us as disruptors.
Oh, my God. Well, you can definitely call me that, a disruptor. But yeah, there are wonderful people on this island doing wonderful things. And
but I will take it a step further.
Yeah.
We also, the reason I stepped off the island as well with KaleidHERscope is we also need to remember we are not alone.
Oh, God.
Are we part of
Are we not the centre of the universe, Magda?
No.
Oh, God.
The last time I looked, no. I hate to burst your bubble. But it's good to remember that, firstly, there is a connection, there is a region, there is a bigger picture. There are people you can reach out to that maybe think the same as you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was something that I realised when I came together with Turkish Cypriot mums. Obviously, I see and know a lot of them because of the school that my kids go to, and they have Turkish Cypriot friends as well. But I will be forever grateful for the podcast and the opportunity that it's given me to meet the women who are on that other side, who I was brainwashed as a child growing up in the diaspora as well in London, thinking that these are bad people.
Yes.
And truly, I feel that part of me has made it like a mission in my life to debunk those myths about the people that are living over there. They are our sisters.
But that's also what you and I have done with our kids, because your son goes to school with Turkish Cypriots. When I first came to Cyprus, and Hands Across the Divide came together about a year or two after I came, and my son was little. I used to take him to meetings. Not every meeting, because I think you shouldn't overwhelm.
Yeah.
I used to take him to a few meetings. And I used to tell him, I don't care what you think, but the opinion you form has to be yours.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So I would take him to a few meetings. There are times he will get really excited now, and he'll say to me, "Oh, I saw your friend Nasha had an accident the other day." And I'll think, "Oh, so the penny dropped.
Yeah.
It worked." I don't need him to be best friends with anyone, but I need him to make an opinion that's his.
Yeah. Yes, yes. I take my boys as well with me to marches and meet certain meetings as well. And it's just a constant conversation with them. But I'm so glad that they could see it with their own eyes.
Yes.
And live it without anyone having to say anything.
Yes, and it's even if
them.
But even if someone, and I'm sure you've all seen it, someone said something to my son when he was 7 or 8 about the Turks in a very negative way, and he turned to them. I was so proud because I was sitting further back here and see me. They're people like you and me. And I thought, whoa.
There you go.
Bravo, Magda.
Yeah, I know.
So we need to expose, and that's why I used to take him to a lot of events, because I didn't want to overwhelm him.
You're so right about that. Even with me, when I'm talking to my boys about girls and women, I really try and control the narrative. So it's not too much, because otherwise they'll just...
5 minutes. 10 minutes.
It's like, it literally is. 5 things, I'm just going to tell you, da-da-da-da-da, and then I'm just going to leave you alone. And,
And do what you want with this information.
I know that it's going to go into your subconscious, and I know I can see the way that you act.
And might not come out now, but it'll come out later.
Yep.
So I'll say to him, drop 5 things and do what you want with the information. Let's change the conversation.
Yeah. Bravo. Okay. Right. Let's move on to the other
sensitive
subject. Magdamu, you are a human rights activist. My God. Okay. First of all, and also as someone from South Africa, where there was an apartheid.
And I have to tell you that my legal professor, the legal counsel that took Israel to court, to the ICJ, International Court of Justice.
Yeah.
The lead counsel was my international law supervisor at uni.
Really?
Very proud of him.
Name?
John Dugard.
Okay.
And in fact, I found him about 15 years ago. I don't know what happened to me. I actually found him online. He works at a university in the Leuven University, and I sent him an email to thank him for inspiring me.
Okay.
And he replied to say, you know what, there isn't a bigger reward of being a teacher and a student coming back 30 years later to say thank you.
There you go. I got goosebumps.
But
yeah.
Anyway, carry on your conversation, but it's I feel very proud of knowing him.
So first of all, because we've talked about our situation here with the Turkish Cypriots, can we draw comparisons between what's going on in Israel and Palestine with our situation when it comes to occupation?
I think the only parallel you can draw is what you recognize in terms of recognizing the North or recognizing the Palestinian state.
Okay.
But beyond that, I think there is no comparison. There isn't a comparison.
Why?
Because there was a war. A war. Shit happens in wars, but there hasn't been the constant encroachment on rights. We have 2 leaders, and I'm not talking about 2 specific leaders, but since 1963 and up to now, we've had leaders that are not interested in a solution. So, it's often what the leaders think has got nothing to do with the people think, because the people are a lot more willing to talk. And unfortunately, I think that may have changed now over the years with the rise of the right wing. But I don't think the leaders have ever listened to the people.
Yeah.
In Israel-Palestine, I think the other difference is that Israel was formed, and after speaking to a lot of Israelis, I've come to understand how attached Israelis or Jews are to Israel, and they feel it as a safety haven. Okay,
Which is understandable.
Mm-hmm. And that's why there's this passion to defend it and to keep it safe. That we don't have it to the same degree in Cyprus, and the Cypriots are not who the Jews are. And I'm saying this not without judgment. The Jews have been made targets over centuries.
Yeah.
They, wrong or right, this has happened. The extent of the intensity is not the same, but the recognition is the same, because I remember when I first came to Cyprus and I worked on a newspaper, and I interviewed the Israeli ambassador then. He was a lovely man. I can't remember his name, but he was a lovely man. And I mentioned something about, because is an ambassador of Palestine on Cyprus. And at the time I mentioned him, and he says to me, you know what, you Cypriots are so passionate about us not recognizing the leadership in the north. Why are you recognizing Palestine? That is not a state. And he's right, because Palestine is not a state. It's not a recognized state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if it was, we wouldn't be talking about the two-state solution.
Exactly.
You mean factually?
Factually. De facto, de jure, they're not a state.
Yeah.
So he says to me, and it actually made me stop and think. So I think only in terms of what you recognize, it could be similar. But to me, it's not the same. It's not the same. The taking over of land has happened on both sides. It happened during a war. And it was a war that was either in 63 and 67 when you had the intercommunal fightings. And then in 74, it wasn't continuous. It isn't continuous,
Okay.
Okay, so to me, it's not, the similarity stops at the fact that there are people that are stuck in limbo.
Okay. Let's go to South Africa. Even though there wasn't an occupation there was an apartheid, and that came down. Can we draw any comparisons?
You can draw comparisons, and it's very interesting that you bring this up, because I'm very active on Twitter, especially in terms of this crisis and
I admire that. I really do. Because for me, Twitter is just like a black hole of chaos and mess. I understand that I have received very important information on there, but it can get so chaotic. So, yeah.
There are parallels, because when they call Israel an apartheid state, yes, it is an apartheid state. I lived in South Africa, and black people could not go to certain places. They had to always have a passport, and a passport was not an identity document to travel. It was to prove who I was. Okay? And they had to carry it. If they didn't have it, they were jailed. The fact that in South Africa you would have 90 days detention without trial, which they then extended to 180, the same thing is happening in Palestine. They're just arresting young kids, and most of them are young kids. And they're disappearing.
Yeah.
The Israelis were getting mad about the fact that people are calling for them. They were called to boycott Eurovision because Israel was performing. And the Israelis were complaining. Boycotts work. We saw what boycotting did.
That was one of my questions. Okay. BDS. So boycotting, diversion, sanction.
I mean, I was living in South Africa during the apartheid years, and I know what it did.
Yeah.
This boycotting. I mean, Professor Dugard, when I was a student, he was legal counsel for the South African representation to the UN, which at the time was one of the only countries within the UN that was actually paying their fees. They were kicked out of the UN because of apartheid. Okay. South African athletes were not allowed to participate at an international level because of apartheid. I remember traveling through Europe and having my South African passport thrown back in my face. So it's exactly the same, because Palestinians battle firstly to leave the country.
Yeah.
They can't, not the country, they can't get through their checkpoint. They get them a visa.
Yeah. You can't just book a holiday and just go.
No, you can't just book a holiday. And this issue that the ones that live in Israel are all the same, no, they're not. There's a very big difference between an Israeli, a Jewish Israeli, an Arab Israeli, a Palestinian Israeli. They don't have the same rights. There's things they can't do.
Yeah. But they do have positions in the government, don't they?
They do have positions in the government. This is what this wonderful woman that was at FemFest spoke about. But to me, there's similarity. It's very close. very close to apartheid. The fact that they built a wall, how more separate can you be?
So I would like to hear...
The fact that they bully them, the IDF goes in and bullies Palestinians. This is what the South African police force used to do during the days of apartheid. I mean, the racial profiling.
Yeah.
I know they don't like this.
But they'll say, we're protecting ourselves.
Protection is up to a point. You protecting yourself doesn't justify killing 35,000. And I'm wondering why that figure has stuck at 35,000 for the past month.
Well, there was talk that the UN halved it, and which they actually didn't halve the numbers. They just said, these are the numbers that we...
Can confirm.
Confirm literal bodies that we have that can be confirmed. There are many others that just cannot be recognised, therefore...
Or are under the rubble. So to me, yes,
Tell me, I'd like to hear your... Well, first of all, let's go back to the boycott. When you said about Eurovision, I'm going to probably say a very not unpopular opinion right now, but I don't think they should have been boycotted from the Eurovision. First unpopular opinion. Second unpopular opinion is the fact that I don't think that targeting and booing a 20-year-old girl on stage who literally she's just a singer, that's what she does, is boycotting or helping anyone. Can you either push back on that or...
Oh, I also don't think bullying a young girl that's singing is very kosher, as they say, as the Jews say.
I didn't like it. But it didn't make me feel good. I don't know.
But Eleni, if you saw how many young kids in South Africa were not allowed to participate in tennis matches or at the Olympic Games.
Yeah. Okay, so why was Israel allowed to participate in the Eurovision then? What was the excuse?
I'm actually not sure, but we also, and I'm going to say something very unpopular, in this Israel-Palestine question and the lobbying and the support, follow the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why and that's why they pull. We all know that Joe Biden came in with the Jewish lobby.
Yeah.
He's now battling. I mean, he's saying he was giving arms to the Israelis. Then suddenly when Rafah came into play, he said, no, we're not going to give you arms if you're going to Rafah. And then the ICC opinion came out of applying for arrest warrants for Netanyahu and the 3 Hamas men, and suddenly saying it's illegal. I mean, he's battling with his funders.
Yeah, you're right. Follow the money.
Follow the money.
There you go. I'd like to ask you what your thoughts and feelings were on October 7th.
I was divided because what happened was appalling, beyond appalling, okay? What worried me, or what probably made me think, is how did they get through the Iron Dome? Because that Iron Dome that Israel has spent billions of dollars on, that protects Israel, how did they get through?
Yeah.
I know I've heard from various sources that they underestimated what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is a retaliation to cover their mistakes. But to me, it's how did they get through? But what they actually did was beyond appalling. And I actually listened to 2 or 3 weeks later, I listened to a webinar with high-powered Israeli women talking about the rapes and the sexual violence. And fortunately, it was after the fact, so I stopped it in the middle and I couldn't listen anymore because I wanted to be violently ill.
Is that the Sheryl Sandberg documentary?
No. It was actually a press conference that was an international law professor. It was first responders. I'll see if I can find the link and I'll send it to you. But it was horrific. So I stopped it in the middle, took a deep breath, walked around and then came back. So it was horrific. But isn't Israel at fault for not protecting them? They could have... things were happening. They were notified on more than one occasion from more than one checkpoint.
Yeah.
That there was activity in the area.
And I actually think there was either a checkpoint or a point along the fencing, along the wall, where it was mostly IDF female soldiers who actually informed. Yes. What I heard was true. Yeah.
So to me, but whether it could have been averted or not, it was horrific.
Regarding the rapes and sexual assault, that was something that really, it kind of shocked me. And then the shock carried on for a while, because there were a lot of people who were like, there were no rapes, there was no sexual assault. And I was like, really?
You know what happened?
Has there ever been a conflict or a war where rape wasn't weaponized? And then they added the word mass rapes. And then there was the New York Times article that came out, Screams Without Borders or something. Then a month ago or 3 weeks ago, Sheryl Sandberg, the lean-in chick, I don't like her. I never liked her from...
I have two minds about Sheryl
I'm more
Sandberg.
of a lean-out person. Produced a documentary called Screams Before Silence, which I watched.
Have you got the link?
I have the link. I'll send it to you.
Thank you. You know what happened at the time? That's what we spoke about earlier. Disinformation, okay? Mass information, because what happened at the time of the rapes and what was going out, there was also this talk of the decapitated babies.
Decapitated babies in ovens.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of which was fake news.
And it was also reported on our news channels here in Cyprus.
So
I remember that.
So I think these excessive acts of violence, which even if there was one rape, it shouldn't have happened, and it should be criticized and fought against. So I think there was a confusion of fake news at the time.
Yep.
So I think people stepped back.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think that's why UN Women also took time to step in. I was one of the people, surprisingly, that criticized the women's groups for not stepping up because women had been raped while we discriminating against Israeli women. But there was a lot of fake news, and a lot of it was on Twitter.
Yeah.
The pictures of the decapitated babies, the pictures of this woman being raped.
Yeah.
And the one who made the news the most, and I cringe when I think. She was found yesterday.
Shani Look?
I think so. She was returned.
What's her? The girl who was in the back of the van.
Yes.
That none of us will ever forget.
Yes. Her body was returned.
Yes.
But
But they said that she was decapitated.
Before or after?
They said that 2 or 3 months ago, and then I'm feeding into the disinformation part. 2 or 3 months ago, they said they found her skull, that she had been decapitated. But then after they entered Rafah, they found her body and 2 other hostages. And apparently she was complete.
But I mean, I agree with you. No one's going to forget that image of her on the back of the van. I don't even want to imagine what she went through.
Yeah.
I don't even want to imagine what her family felt seeing that thing.
Yeah.
But there was so much disinformation at the time.
Yeah.
And not all of it was Al Jazeera. A lot of it was Israeli controlled with the decapitated babies and the rape. So I think at the time people just stepped back. At the time also, if my information is correct, UN Women asked to investigate, and they were not allowed to.
Yes.
Okay. So people stepped back for a while. But as I've said, and a lot of feminists came out and said, even if it was a one rape, we must believe.
Thank you. That is my point. And what I'm about to say now, in regards to Sheryl Sandberg's documentary, which I watched, please keep this in mind, what Magda just said. Even if there was one, and I believe there was, you cannot just let a bunch of hot-blooded males free to rape and pillage and destroy and think that they're not going to touch women and that they're not going to sexually... I mean, come on.
No,
Let's be realistic. So I watched that documentary, and then a day later, I found a debate, a discussion where it was debunking Sheryl Sandberg's documentary, and I watched that as well. And this is something that I say a lot on my social media or whenever I talk to people, is if I find one piece of information from one side, I will go
and look for
the exactly. And I urge anyone, please, before you say anything online, before you share your opinion, before you start blurting out and posting things, look, cross-reference, and make sure that what you're saying is truthful, because we're just drowning in disinformation. So I watched that discussion where they were debunking what Sheryl Sandberg had, and it wasn't so much the debunking that convinced me that there's something going on here. It was that the fact that I watched an hour of this documentary and there was no proof of mass rapes, even from the hostages.
No, but that was the whole point, I think. But even if there wasn't proof, one rape...
Yes. But there was one. There was one hostage who said that she had to perform a sexual act on one
of her captors.
The captors that was holding her. But I was expecting more. Maybe, that was my expectation. I need proof. No, I don't need proof. But at the same time, if you're going to make a whole documentary about sexual assault on October 7, then I was expecting you to convince me a bit
Well, I think
more.
To come out 3 months or 4 months after an event like this with a documentary is preemptive. I think it's premature because there's a lot of information. Some of it is misinformation, some of it is disinformation.
I agree.
You need to cross-reference. To actually have a documentary 4 months later
I know, you're right.
challenging to me.
You're right, but we can say that maybe there weren't mass rapes.
But what do you qualify as mass?
That's what I was going to say. That's the other thing. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. She was like, well, what constitutes mass? I said, you're right. Even if it was 2, even if it was 100, does it make any difference?
Yes.
No, women were raped.
Yes.
Okay. And that's often what I say when I'm discussing this subject. Let's not talk about who bombed the hospital. Let's not talk about who raped or sexually assaulted. Women were raped. Hospitals were bombed.
But I need to tell you about this. I went to a meeting 2 months ago, and I won't say where because I don't want to. And I was supporting a motion for ceasefire in Palestine, ceasefire in Gaza, returning of the hostages and humanitarian aid. And as usual, I was supporting it.
Yeah.
And what came out in the conversation generally was, well, the Hamas rape, but the IDF is too honorable to rape. I said, are you shitting me? Are you shitting me that the IDF is... I said, firstly, check out TikTok about where they talk about it. Read your media about how many times... And we mustn't also prioritize that only rape is sexual violence against women, okay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
It's not better or worse. They all are equal, should get the equal attention because they're all violence against women. They're all about using women as a weapon of war, okay?
Yep.
I mean, how many reports, and I think there was a report just before October 7th of the IDF going into a house in the West Bank and forcing the women of the household to undress. Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that not violence against women? Why is that considered honorable? Okay, and we've seen the rape. I mean, this bullshit that they're more honorable. I'm not saying all IDF is dishonorable.
I know, but the thing is that we talk about violence against women all the time in so many contexts, and it's okay. But then all of a sudden, you talk about rapes from Hamas to Israeli women or IDF to Palestinian.
No, but the only thing that is heard in this conflict, and this is my biggest beef, the only thing that is heard in this conflict in terms of violence against women in time of conflict is the rape of the Israeli woman.
Okay.
And I'm not minimizing it.
Yeah.
They need to be at the top of the list, but they need to be at the top of the list with the violence against the Palestinian woman in Gaza.
Yeah. But also, I stand by this.
Giving birth to hospitals because there's no medication, giving birth without anesthetic.
Having C-sections without anesthesia.
Exactly.
I mean, I've had a C-section and I can't.
Let's put all violence against women at the same level. It's not one. There's not a competition.
Exactly. It is violence against women. It has been and sexual assault has been weaponized in all wars. I mean, look at what happened in 1974. For years, people were saying there was no way that Greek Cypriots raped Turkish Cypriots women. No way. No, yes, there is a way. And they did it, and now we know about it.
And now we know, but it's 50 years too late.
Yeah. You mentioned UN Women. The other thing that I find very confusing in this whole situation is the fact that apparently we no longer trust the UN.
No, we don't.
Okay. And also I was going to say that...
I
saw something that I did not like the other day. The UN committee, was it, doing a 1-minute silence for the Iranian president?
Yes.
What the fuck was that?
You know what? I think, no, just hold on.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to hold on.
As much as I agree that he was the butcher of Tehran, he doesn't cease to be the leader of a country. I mean, I wouldn't have given them a minute of silence, okay, as a person. But consider the position of the UN.
You're justifying you're justifying the thought process that the UN had.
He was the leader of a country.
Okay.
It's not the UN's position to judge him. And we know he is, and everyone, there were parties in the street of Tehran celebrating his death.
Oh, so many Iranians celebrating his death.
But he doesn't cease to be a leader of a country.
Okay. But he was a fucking butcher.
Yes, but I mean...
what I'm saying is that...
No, I agree with you. But there's a very fine line.
Yeah, you have this mistrust that's growing and growing of the UN, and then you go and do something like that. I mean, it's not helping.
It's not helping. I don't know what I would have done if I was the UN.
What would you do?
I don't know what I would have done, but knowing the way he...
Did everyone get up? I didn't actually see the video. I read the headline.
I read the headlines, and then I heard the Israeli... permanent representative at the UN, which I don't like anyway.
Yeah.
Because he keeps on wearing that yellow star in a sympathy or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know what I would have done. I might have done something more diplomatic.
Yeah.
A half minute of dropping the flags and lifting them.
Okay.
I don't know what I would have done,
All
but to
right.
me it was a very fine line of actually acknowledging who are they to judge?
Yeah. I know.
They shouldn't be judging.
I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from.
But we both agree that it wasn't worthy. He wasn't worthy of even 1 second of silence.
Fuck no. And burn in hell, you piece of shit. Sorry.
What worries me is who's going to replace him, but that's another issue.
That's true. That's true. But let's go back to the mistrust of the UN. Why? I mean, right now, when I watch discussions and debates happening and someone says, well, the UN has said this, and even Human Rights Watch, I think people are mistrusting that as well now.
The UN is a powerless organization. As much as I'm a student of international law, and international law is where I blossom.
Yeah.
The UN, and we've seen it with Cyprus, we've seen it with Israel, the UN is a body that produces resolutions, whether Security Council resolutions or General Assembly, that you can or you cannot follow.
Okay.
Which means it has no executive power, which means, in effect, it's powerless.
Is it objective, though? That's my question.
No, it says objective is the people voting for the resolutions. Because there again, follow the money. Because if you look at the Security Council, who's on the Security Council? You've got the 5 people that are pro-Israel.
Yeah.
And you've got people playing diplomatic things, but it's not an objective body because people are voting. But to me, and it pains me because, I mean, international law is where, the international domain is where I flourish because I think we need to think as a global community. They have no power. And we've seen it. I mean, Cyprus, how many resolutions have been passed for the Turks to move or whatever, or with the Israelis?
Yeah.
And the Palestinians, how many resolutions have been passed?
Yeah.
And nothing happens.
Yeah.
I think they're necessary because I think they are a reminder that there are certain ethics and whatever. But mistrust on what level? On what level?
I don't know. Numbers that are coming out, statistics that are coming out.
But they're talking about now this decision of applying for arrest warrants.
Okay, so the ICC, the International Court, Criminal Court, they have applied.
Yes.
There are no arrest warrants yet as we speak now on the 22nd of May. They are applying to get arrest warrants. Which means, and again, even though you've put, personally, I'm happy that they've got Netanyahu and his the other
Defense
guy,
Minister.
Defense Minister, and the 3 Hamas leaders But this is going to cost a lot more to the Israeli government than it is to Hamas. I mean, I was listening to a discussion yesterday and someone was saying, well, Hamas isn't going to get on a commercial flight and go and visit Rishi Sunak in the UK.
No, but at this stage...
What happens if Netanyahu does that?
No, but at this stage, they have applied for arrest warrants.
Okay, if
but as yet, nothing has happened, which means they are safe. Also, Netanyahu, as Israel and as heads of state, they can claim immunity, which means they can put out arrest warrants, but they can claim immunity.
I didn't think of that.
Okay.
Can they?
I think the biggest plus on this application for arrest warrants is the tide going against Israel, because until now, Israel has controlled the narrative. Until after October 7th, because I think for a month after October 7th, Israel was totally in control of the narrative. Now they're not.
Well, now they've entered Rafah, they're not. That's for sure.
But I think even before Rafah, you would see the Jewish Americans coming out and protesting, not in our name.
Yeah, at the encampments, you had plenty of...
But even at the Capitol Hill, people demonstrate during meetings. You've got Holocaust victims coming out, not in my name, soon afterwards. So I think this is...
But you've got people protesting in the streets of Tel Aviv.
Yes.
They're there.
Yeah. So this is just it's so apparent that the current has gone against Israel, who to date have controlled the narrative.
Yeah, I think it's going against them as well, because it's pretty obvious right now that they actually don't care about the hostages either.
No, they don't.
Which I find absolutely disgusting. I mean, there's a mum... I honestly feel like my heart breaks every time I think about it, whose son was taken and his arm was blown off, and she just doesn't know if he's alive or dead. And you're seeing your government not give a flying fuck, literally.
I had a big discussion in this conversation I had earlier when I told you I was supporting this resolution. Next to me was a woman who was sitting from a Zionist movement. And I'm really interested in connecting with them, because I want to understand Zionism.
Same.
And I think we also need to separate the positive Zionists from the Zionists that are fanaticized.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, yeah.
The first question from her to me was, well, can you imagine how the parents of the hostages are feeling? And my answer to her was, well, can you imagine how the Palestinian mothers whose 13-year-old son is in jail and she doesn't know where he is feeling? Okay, so we moved beyond that. And she says to me, you know what, all they have to do is give back the hostages. I said, you know what, this is bullshit. Do you honestly believe that if Hamas hands back the hostages now, the war will stop? She said to me, yes. I said, I disagree, because...
if Hamas lays down their weapons, will it finish? No.
And I said, you have bombed the whole of Gaza. It's carrying on. There's a blockade of food and humanitarian aid. Why are you assuming that in all the bombs that have been thrown, some of the hostages haven't been killed?
Yeah.
Why are you assuming that if the people that are holding the hostages have food, they're going to keep it for their kids and not give it to the hostages?
Yeah.
Why are you assuming that they are still alive and healthy? And if you are assuming that if I, an Israeli, had a person that was a hostage, I don't know how I'd cope like you, I would be horrified that my government is not focused on bringing them home safe, but is focused on catching Hamas. And then
catching Hamas, killing thousands of innocent civilians.
They keep on putting this Hamas.
Yeah.
And my other question to her is, how do you separate Hamas from the Palestinians?
That's one of the questions that I was going to ask you.
I don't know how you do it. And someone said to me, you know what, but now most of the Palestinians support Hamas. I said, what would you do if you were a Palestinian?
But how do we know that most of the Palestinians support Hamas?
I would say that at this stage, maybe it's an assumption, they're seeing the Israelis pushing them out of their country.
Yeah, but it's also because of what Hamas did.
No, but also, did Hamas do something? I think the retaliation is out of control, because this defending ourselves or protecting our borders is crap, okay? Yeah. Because there's a point beyond, so we're equating 2,000 Israeli lives with 35,000 Palestinian lives. Where's the equality? And where does the protection stop? When are the Israelis going to feel safe?
One of my questions from the very beginning wasn't there another way that Israel could have done this? Specific attacks, assassinations. I mean, like they've always
I can't believe they don't actually know where Hamas is, to be
done
honest.
over the years.
I can't believe they've got the best, Mossad is the best secret service army in the world, the highest state-of-the-art equipment. I can't believe they don't know where most of them are, and they can't be more targeted.
And also the fact that the heads aren't even in Gaza, are they?
Yes.
They're in Qatar.
So if they cut
Somewhere.
out, how can they not find a way to get to them? And what are they expecting? So they're sitting out of the country, and the Israelis are pushing the Palestinians into the corner. And I mean, it's 2 million people have been displaced.
Yes.
And most of them for the second time. And the most horrific thing that I find that's happened in this conflict, for the first time we have the acronym WCNSF. Wounded child, no surviving family. And I think to myself, and I think they're in the region of 16 or 17,000 Palestinian children. What the fuck, dude?
Make me cry now.
Now, I look
can't-
at this and I think to myself,
I can't even imagine.
And then I call my son and I say, dude, Agabose. He says to me, why did you think of saying this? And I said, I
Yeah.
just needed to tell you.
Yeah, I know. Can you, as mothers, can you imagine, like, I was reading a story, a mother had 7 kids, 3 survived, and she said they've stopped asking for food and water. They've just stopped. They've just gone quiet. They don't even want to eat or drink anymore.
But this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. Does Israel, I'm not even going to put Hamas into this conversation. This area has lived for the far past 60 years. Sirens, bombs, gunshots, safe. They all have a safe room.
They all have safe rooms.
Why aren't they considering the fact that this is a community, now putting the greater community, that's suffering post-traumatic syndrome disorder? Mm-hmm. Why are they assuming this is going to be solved where they're actually creating a community that doesn't have the ability to think in that way?
Yeah.
I've been living with bombs. My children are missing. My husband's been shot, and you want to get peace with me. You want to find peace with me. I'm finding that there's an illogic, and like you are wondering, isn't there another way of handling this?
Well, we've reached the point right now, I think, where Netanyahu can't stop this war, because he stops this war.
He goes to jail.
His political career is dead. So yeah, it's follow the money, it's follow the power, it's us feeling powerless, and me asking, so does boycotting really help? I mean, will it make a difference if I don't go to Starbucks and buy my coffee?
Well, I have to tell you that in the Middle East, at the start of this conflict, when the Palestinians with the area started boycotting McDonald's, sales dropped by 80%.
Yeah, I heard that.
And they got really panicked. So boycotting does help, but it has to be systematic.
Yeah.
And it has to be continuous.
Yeah. Okay, final question. Do you see this ending? And if you do see this ending anytime soon, how will it end?
No.
So
I don't know. No, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, because they're pushing. I don't know what's going to happen. And people keep on asking this question, well, why aren't these Palestinians going to Egypt and Jordan and then coming back? I said, are you fucking mad? You actually think that if they leave, the Israelis are going to let them come back in? So to me, I don't know where this is going to end. And I think that's one of the reasons that the tide is turning against the Israelis, because they've created, Hamas did one thing that was abominable, but Israel's reaction has actually created a situation that has now put us all at risk, because Iran is getting involved. Everyone's going to get involved.
Yeah.
And I don't think the assassination of the president of Iran and his not the assassination, the death of the...
Oh, you said assassination.
I don't know why.
Do you know something
No,
that
no, that was a slip of the tongue. But the fact that they died, him and the foreign minister died, and now there's instability in the country, I don't think that's going to help. So I think we've been put in a situation that if Israel had handled it better, we might, because we're at risk, and then we could, people not understanding that this is a boiling, and Iran has nuclear power, so does Israel have nuclear power. And then we wonder why our oxygen in the air we're breathing in Cyprus is crap, and we've all got asthma.
Aren't you enjoying the dust, Magda?
Oh, don't talk about it. Anyway, I wish there was somebody who could have a magic wand and stop this war, but I actually don't know where it's going to end.
Yeah, I know.
I just think of the Palestinians like being trapped in a corner, and my heart breaks.
My heart breaks for both sides, everyone who's involved.
This war has to stop.
It does.
Killing has to stop. We actually have to sit down and think, because, as I said to someone, these are my mothers, my sisters, my kids, my husband. This has to stop, because just because they're 10,000 miles away doesn't mean that I'm not connected. It affects me. We're all affected.
Yeah.
So it has to stop. This war has to stop. Boycotting is a start, but I don't know what else we can do, because it's follow the money.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything that you can do from your devices, as I said earlier, please cross-reference information that you come across. Read up as much as you can. Don't just spasm, post, whatever. Get involved in your own way, and
get involved in your own way, because it affects us all.
Yeah.
We're all connected, and it affects us all.
Yeah.
And even with one little post, one person can make a difference. Maybe a small one, but you can make a difference. Don't underestimate the effect you can have.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Magda.
Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you.
Lovely to be with you again.
Lovely. I hope to see you again.
Yeah, okay. And to the listeners, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.